So we call the regular meeting of the Engineering Operations Committee and the special meeting of the Board of Directors of the West Basin Municipal Water District to order. And first we'll have a determination of quorum. Mr. General Manager.
Absolutely. We'll start with Director Deere. Here. Director Williams.
Here.
Director Gray.
Here.
Director Houston. And Chair Alvarez.
Here.
We have a quorum.
So next item up is public comment. Do we have anybody from the public that wishes to speak?
We have I think the Medinas, and I see Susanna, and I believe Dan is also with you.
Yeah, he's on, Dan. Or what? Free snacks.
There's the podium.
Yeah, but these speakers work, so anywhere would work.
Okay, and so we'll have 3 minutes on the clock for Dan and Susanna Medina to, if each would like to make a separate comment. So we'll start with maybe Susanna.
Okay, in reference to your donation, as far as my questions are that the donation that was given to us on 2019, or the $4,000, was expense, and there was some stuff that was not, the deposits were not returned. So my question to you is this: was that $4,000 already, let's say, reported on your report for 2020? And that would have been like a write-off for the donation designation. That's one of my questions. Because of having to fill out the form and showing that it's a $6,000 donation this year is not, I'm confused, first of all. The $2,000, like I said, I have a concern because we've been doing business with you guys as far as helping to promote all your events as far as for the community since Don Deere joined, Director Don Deere. And so it's never has been questioned as much as this year. And I'm getting kind of like, we've always done a lot of things for the West Basin to promote this business and create the advertisement for, you want to say something?
Go finish.
So my question is, why are we, it seems like it's more of a questioning what we do and what we have provided.
Long and short of it is, they want us to take pictures of the directors being in the parade, making the speeches, and all the things that basically belong to the Department of Public Relations. They should be taking pictures. They should be doing all the videos and stuff, because for the past 21 years, we've donated the booths. We've donated the cars for the directors to drive in. And now all of a sudden, it's like we're a brand new company. We've been with you for over 2 decades and never had a problem, never had to sign a contract. Everything was done on a handshake and a verbal agreement that we're going to do this and we're going to do that. So what it boils down to is we're not taking pictures, we're not writing a bio, and our flyer already has your logo on it. So if you want to expand on what West Basin does, then talk to your PR people and they can push that out. And that's basically her premise, is that we had to sign a contract that says we knocked out $6,000 instead of 2.
This year's.
That's it.
Sounds like there are some issues that.
Speak up, sir.
Yes. If you can hear me now better?
Now I can, yes. I have a hearing aid, okay? There's a reason.
All right, we all do. Issues that you need to maybe discuss with our general manager. This isn't on our agenda, so we cannot engage you today. but we appreciate very much you bringing the issues up. They are noted. I think that the full board will also note your concerns. But maybe you can discuss them further with the general manager and staff.
The only concern we have is that the money is not going to be given to us till after the event.
That's never happened before in the past 21 years.
And we incurred the expenses already, so it's like, you know,
I understand. It's just that this is not an agenda item, so we can't engage in a discussion on it right now.
I also understand, but I just got a phone call from West Basin this morning addressing the same issue, and he let us know that you're having a meeting today at 1. So I'm putting in my 2 cents with regards to the 8 cents that are left over.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. General Manager, if you would please follow up with Mr. Medina and Ms. Medina after this meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay,
So, moving on, if no more public comments on the,
platform. So we'll check the online platform and identify any members of the public who would like to be recognized by raising their hand. And I don't, at this moment, see any hands raised. So I will take it that we have no additional public comments.
okay, so the next item is presentations and.
No presentations on the agenda.
Following item is the action calendar, and
No items on the action calendar.
so we'll move on to the information calendar. And we have an oral report on the status of the risk and resiliency assessment. So, Mr. General Manager, would you please go ahead and address that item?
Absolutely. So our first item, status of the risk and resiliency assessment, will be an oral report provided by Alejandra Cano. So Alejandra, please take the floor.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon, members of the board. Today, I would like to provide this information item on the current efforts that have been conducted for the Emergency Response Plan project. As you may know, the Emergency Response Plan is a set of procedures and protocols that agencies develop in order to respond to any unexpected event or emergency, whether they are natural disasters or man-made emergencies. The purpose of the emergency response plan is basically to outline all the steps that should be taken in the event of an emergency, with the goal of minimizing the impacts of the emergency, ensuring the safety of those that are involved, including the public. I want to note here that West Basin does not have a finalized and approved emergency response plan that meets the current industry standards. And for this reason, to complete the emergency response plan, a risk and resiliency assessment has been currently being conducted for the district to identify any potential risks and vulnerabilities in our operations, as well as to develop strategies to mitigate those risks and increase resiliency in the face of any unexpected events or emergencies. By identifying potential risks and vulnerabilities throughout this assessment, we can develop plans and strategies to mitigate these risks and ensure the continued operation of critical systems. Identifying and addressing potential risks and vulnerabilities in our operations can also improve the overall efficiency and reduce costs associated, or that could be associated with any emergencies or disruptions down the line. By conducting a risk and resiliency assessment, we can also demonstrate our commitment to providing safe, reliable, and sustainable water services to the community we serve. And in this way, we can also build public confidence in our agency and increase support for our operations and initiatives. So the purpose of this assessment overall is to provide awareness and to help us identify any potential risks and vulnerabilities in our operations. In this way, we can, by identifying those risks, we can close the gap and be more prepared, or be prepared in situations when any unexpected event or emergencies may occur. With this in mind, request for proposal to develop the assessment was issued on December 6, 2022. This RFP was issued to develop the assessment in accordance to the latest guidelines set forth in American Water Infrastructure Act, the AWIA, for the recycled water facilities. SA Associate was the consultant water with a total amount of $38,000. During this process, we received 8 proposals. Staff evaluated all these proposals and concluded that the SA Associate is the most qualified consultant and the lowest responsive with the best value for the district, ranking number 1 with the highest score in the evaluation and in the proposal. SA Associate has also conducted other risk and resiliency assessment for agencies that are similar to West Basin. That's the case of the assessment they conducted for Central Basin Municipal Water District, who at the time were required to conduct the assessment by the EPA. The assessment, in terms of the schedule, the assessment commenced in February 2021 of this year, and is estimated to be completed in June, July of this year as well. The assessment has required collaboration from multiple departments throughout the district and is led by the engineering department in conjunction with operations. As of today, the consultant has conducted a series of focus meetings that involve specific topics of discussion with staff. Those topics include physical security, detention strategies, operation, business impact, O&M, capital, as well as cybersecurity and some components in finance. Currently, the consultant is conducting a gap analysis that basically compares the information that we have available now with the current conditions that have been evaluated with the focus meetings, and compares those where we should be in terms of preparedness. Findings from the assessment will be used to complete the emergency response plan, which will be completed in-house in order to incorporate and prioritize adaptation strategies. And this is going to be done in order to be in compliance with the AWIA. So with this, and overall, we are trying to complete the project with the minimum budget, understanding that the staff does require some outside party expertise guidance in order to identify those risks. And from there, we can take it and complete the emergency response plan. So we take it from there, complete it. And right now, it's estimated that the emergency response plan will be completed in fall of 2023. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alejandra. Director Williams, do you have any questions?
No, this is just an informational item. There's
Yes.
no action to be taken.
No.
Thank you.
No questions.
Director Gray, do you have any questions? Comments?
No comment.
Hello?
Yes, I hear you.
I'm sorry, Chair, did you ask me something?
No, you said if you had any comments.
No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the report. So basically, this is kind of a hybrid emergency response plan in terms of the preparation. SA and Associates was retained to prepare some background material, and then the staff, you guys will be finalizing the plan, drafting the plan.
Yeah, so SA was retained to conduct the risk and resiliency assessment, which is, as you mentioned, kind of like that bridge to assess, identify those potential risks, and then we will take it from there and utilize that information incorporated in the emergency response plan, which will be done in-house.
Thank you. That's a very nice approach. Appreciate it. Okay. Next item is the status of operations contracts, Infomark and Viola. And that's in our reports, Mr. General Manager. Like to take that one.
Yes, and I believe Uzi Daniels, our operations manager, will be providing that oral report. So please, Uzi, if you may.
Great, thank you, Greg. Good afternoon, directors. And I received this request for the oral report. I have some bullets and notes. Hopefully that'll cover it, but please feel free. Any questions, if we don't have them available, we'll get them to you. And in addition, both contract operators, I believe, have a representative on the meeting. So if we had any really specific questions for them, they are present as well. So I'll start. We have two main operating contracts, one for our distribution system and one for the treatment facilities. For ease of discussion, I will start with the distribution system that is currently under a contract from Infomark. That contract, we went out to bid and we engaged them about 3 years ago. That was after we had Cal Water for almost 20 years as the contract operator. They did not bid on that project. We entered into a 3-year agreement. I've asked around, and 5 to 7 years is pretty common. 3 is not uncommon. And so far things have been going well. It's approximately 3 operators to help us support functions that include, and I apologize, I'll have to read these to make sure I get them all. Maintenance, so to say, and checks of the over 103 miles of purple pipeline we have, including even the brine line discharge. Isolation valve exercising, air vacuum valves, our pump and disinfection stations. They also help maintain the chemicals, make sure that we order chemicals in time if we need those for the disinfection stations. Response to underground service alerts. In the monthly update, you guys will notice in there that we get a lot of those, probably about 500 to 600 a month. A lot of work going on out there, so a lot of activity alerts. And then leak and repair response. So either repairs they can do on small service connections or call out for if it's a major leak, or we often get a hit airbag by a car. The current overall agreement budget is $2.4 million plus a 10% contingency. And to date, and I'm looking at here, up to March of this year, we've spent a little over 1.2 million. And we intend to go through, meet the budget throughout the extent of the contract. And we're also in the midst of, by next month, so beat us to the chase, we are going to present to the board 2 options to have an evaluation, the options of extending for 2 more years or going back out to bid. Just as a practice, we had a nice discussion at our budget meeting of some of the things staff tries to do. We always do try to approach our vendors. Doesn't mean we've signed anything. If they're willing to honor the same prices, we always do approach them so we can present that option to you. That used to be something that worked a little more since the inflation and all the supply chains. Not most people do have a price increase. So we will present that to the board as an option on the distribution contract side. So you should see that in an info or an action item next month for a choice options for you guys to choose from. As far as the treatment contract operations by Veolia, also for some history and context, it was United. Before that, the plant was built, and then the contract. And I apologize, Jan. Then they were United for many years before my time. And then purchased by Suez, and now very recently Veolia is the contract operator. We've had a long-running contract operations with them. Again, I've been engaging actually quite a bit through the industry, trying to engage other folks to see industry standards, what their contract lengths are. 15 years seems to be common, just anecdotally. And ours has gone on for nearly the extent of the treatment plant operations. This contract requires, and again, I'll read some of these, and just overall, operate maintenance of the recycled water facilities. That includes ECL, Chevron, the Torrance Refinery Facility, our Carson facility, in addition to the Hyperion Pump Station and a few ancillary pieces of equipment, including. So those things are included as a part of that. They support, their contract states that they're to support our strategic mission and vision, maximize water production, meet water quality requirements, support our programs and projects. They're also to give an annual report to suggest any R&R or capital that is needed in order for the plant to meet these requirements, compliance and contractually. They're to manage the asset management system. In addition, they can procure some materials, specialized chemicals, and they have a limit to procure as needed with our approval. And in addition, some equipment and parts. They are to enforce all of our plans. So we are responsible and still, if a violation was to occur, that goes to West Basin for any of the we've had a series on all of the permits. They are required by contract to help meet those limits, to let us know what is needed to meet those limits. And the one area where it separates from us is more OSHA related, anything that is with their employee safety. Now, because they're a contract operator, they are also required to enforce safety. So that is to say they have the duty of enforcing if we have tours or whatnot, that their safety manager is to make sure to be aware of their facility, alert us and train folks on what is permitted and standard PPE. The contract has approval for approximately 65 full-time equivalents. And this is a 24/7 operation. That is also required. They have to have a certain amount of grade 5s. That's required for a state permit because our facility is so advanced, so that level, there's a certain number. The overall agreement is a time and materials contract, and we can give you the budget that you guys have seen for the next year for I apologize for this last year for 2022-23 is up to approximately about $15 million. Everything included, again, labor, any of the equipment, chemicals, specialty chemicals. This agreement is set to expire at the end of 2024. Bringing to the board, just like with the distribution, we will be bringing to you, slated for July. I'm working hard on it with the team here. Again, some options for you to consider. And those options are to assess the current operations, how a renegotiation of the current contract, the pros and cons, in addition to going out to bid for that as well, going out for an RFP or even an RFQ. I will tell you, we have been engaging. There's a number of folks I've engaged with, utilities around the country, who have switched contract operators, trying to get a point, because the reality is we know we have a real exciting future at West Basin of all the opportunities. Water is just, I think it's exciting, even though some of the issues sound daunting. But as you can imagine, for some of our contract operators, if they hear certain things, don't believe that there is some promise, it gets a little challenging for us to keep people on board. We are surrounded by some of the big salary folks at TWP and MWD. That's our competition for some of our operations and our operators. Veolia has been doing a good job. We've lost a lot of staff, but we're staffing back up as quick as possible. And I mention that because when we give you the options, we want to be prepared and know we need to be strategic in how we approach this, so as to minimize the risk of when you're transitioning or even when you're going out to bid on something, so that you don't lose critical staff who may be very important to keeping the operations going. So we hope to have that. We're getting a little backup support for that as well, and hope to have that to this board, those options presented by July is what I have planned. And then as far as other information, I know we provide you monthly with an operations. We do a lot of KPIs. We're evaluating that, making sure we don't just report to report. I really appreciate efficiencies. I want data that means something that we're using. So we are starting to really deconstruct our current contract to help us learn what's working, what's not working. That will benefit us no matter which way we go. So far, Linda Martinez, the project manager there, has been very collaborative with me to kind of go through that to see where we can do better. We're evaluating where our team here at West Basin could also, when we see some opportunities to optimize, and all that is playing into this, and we'll come to you in that memo by July. And with that, any questions? Did I cover the update you needed? If not, happy to add any additional.
Well, thank you, Uzi. Director Williams,
No, thank you.
hey, do you have any questions, comments?
No, thank you.
On the distribution system maintenance contract with Infomart, that was a 3-year contract with a 2-year option.
It didn't have the 2-year option necessarily, so we're talking, we've asked them if they would honor the same price, and we're working with them right now, and that's what we'll present to you. So we are gonna present as an option, a 2-year extension, matching the industry standard of 5 years. That's
But it wasn't with an option, it was a 3-year contract.
it was a 3-year contract. I don't believe the option was
Okay.
listed in there.
I just clarification.
Sure.
And the total value of that contract over the 3 years was 2.4 million.
Correct.
And of that amount, they billed about half.
Correct. Up to March. The numbers.
Okay. And when is that contract due?
That is due at the end. The schedule for that one is due at the end of the year.
Of this year.
That's what we planned. The board recommendation, and we went out to bid. Otherwise, the contract actually expires, apologize, next year. But we're planning ahead because if we go out to
Okay,
bid,
but what, it expires in end of this year or expires end of next year?
June, in 2024, June of 2024 is when that contract ends.
And so a little over a year from now is the expiration of that contract. And as you're planning that you're probably gonna use the full budget amount of the 2.4 million.
We're planning,
We're hoping
let's
that-
say we budgeted for that, yes.
Okay. Hopefully it won't go over that,
Okay.
into the 10%.
Okay.
And the treatment contract with Viola, which as you said, was the successor to Suez, who was successor to United, who was the initial and the only operator that we had for the facilities going back to about 1995.
Correct.
So they're going on 30 years of contracting without ever having to compete with anyone.
Correct.
In terms of performance, what are you had mentioned there was 3 or 4 items that they have.
Yeah, so performance, we have, and Susanna can also speak to this, we do have some KPIs. So performance is measured in meeting water quality standards, budget, and deliverables. These aren't really performance standards, but we have a certain amount of deliverables in the contract. That's where I say that's really up to West Basin then to evaluate if that's being met, those standards are being met. But really, it's the water quality standards that we utilize the most. And within budget, we now are getting, also how they're staffed. Are they staffed up? We're starting to get, Susanna's heading up the efforts. They have a real new, brilliant asset manager, or he's the engineer. Really taking a deep dive look at that, trying to improve that. because that gives us some nice metrics to look at how long it's, how many PMs we have to how many CMs, because that's always good for a district. Those are the general term that we have in the contract as asset management. But we internally are turning that into something to make sure and measure success, how long it takes time to repair things, how many labor hours it gets into, et cetera.
Deliverables, what are they?
Oh, there's a list of deliverables and that I'd be happy, I could provide that, get that out or attach it to the next. The deliverables are all mentioned in the contract. There's many of them. I have listed them in a, if you'd like me to read them, all I could, otherwise I could provide a spreadsheet.
Why don't you just go ahead and provide the spreadsheet later?
Okay.
In terms of meeting the water quality standards, have they always met the water quality standards?
It's been a challenge since the Hyperion upset. I will tell you, the water quality standards, yes, yes, for the most part. Where we have not met them, have with Title 22 in the past, had to do with our chlorides and TDS. That is, the regulators don't come down on us because there's even, our Colorado River water doesn't meet them either because of drought conditions. Standards that the regulators we have not met by permit, but all the regulators are okay with that. That's been something that we have had for a long time. Where we are struggling now, especially since the upset, is we do have some issues with iron. Because when we load a lot of chemical to treat the water, we are sending out water, and we're taking a lot of complaints from customers. We go out, we try to meet with them, and then that translates with what gets to our satellite facilities. So then that's not a compliance issue anymore. That is a contractual issue. So that is something that I know the board and everyone is aware as we're talking to a lot of the different refineries and satellite customers. We're trying to meet those. Those also come down to a lot of them membranes. I know, I'm not sure, have we had some membranes on here, optimizing our chemicals. Maybe even we're in a new process of challenging each other on, without redesigning and rebuilding a whole plant, what can we do differently given the changing influent water quality, which I know with climate change and drought is just going to be exacerbated. So in that case, we are challenged with meeting the limits for those contractual limits, but they're also related what comes from the treatment plant.
You're responsible for meeting the water quality standards, and when they don't, what are the repercussions? Is there any performance standards in the contract? Are they held to any standards if they fail to meet them? Are there any penalties that are applied?
No, there are not any penalties that are applied. I can just tell you, it's everyone meets, we all team up together and try to solve it. But to answer your question directly, this contract does not have those. That is something I've been asking for as I research other contracts out there, how they handle that kind of a situation. A lot of them relate more to compliance and permits. I haven't yet, in my limited research, found anything related to the contractual side, these customers who aren't associated with a permit.
And you mentioned that this year, the current year, 2022, 23, that the value of the contract is 15 million?
That's what we budgeted for,
Yeah,
yes.
but what is the actual amount that?
It's a T&M contract. So then we budget and we kind of try to stick to the budget. It's basically, we use that as a management tool.
Okay, so you think you probably end up spending the full 15 million or close to it?
I think so, with us trying to do some small fixes, but please.
The labor that will be under because of number of positions, number of personnel, key personnel have left. And DOE is trying to staff up, so on the labor side, we'll likely be under, but what Lucy alerted to was that we've been doing a lot of repair because of the upsets and that maybe we may be hitting the budget amount, but we're not sure yet, because this is the last couple of months, so better idea when we get those invoices.
So they pay them for labor, and that's about 65 FTE, and you said they've had a lot of vacancies, so we're a little under. Maybe they don't need have that larger staff, and we can save some money and still delivering the service. As we look at contract, I think that might be best to have standards and very prescriptive as to what the expectations are, and not just to allow kind of a T&M type of approach. As we reevaluate this one and think about the future. So if there's the labor component, and the other component is the repair component. And they build that also, and that's where you're thinking that we'll probably have a higher than normal repair component this year, and therefore spend the full 15 million that was budgeted.
Most likely. And that is just also trying to be efficient. All fixes. We're getting these, we're calling them focus teams to really focus in on being very creative on how we can duct tape and stretch things out. We really are trying our best on there, but sometimes that involves maybe some smaller purchases to really get things moving and opportunities for optimization.
So with respect to repairs, that includes labor and parts and anything they purchase. So in addition to their FTEs that we're paying for labor separate, and that's billed through the repair portion of the contract. Just help me understand how that works.
You can talk better to the invoicing and labor separate.
Well, there are certain like maintenance, routine maintenance that their staff does, because they have a maintenance staff. But the bigger, like replacing a 24-inch valve or whatnot, they will contract out. Those will be contracted out and paid through. They have staff. And so those are the hours that we will pay them for managing those type of projects.
All right, so they basically just get to pass everything through. There's no performance. Their staff would
They do.
normally, well, they do have staff.
They have staff that they actually do repairs. All repairs that within their limits, they do have routine repairs. Replacing pumps and taking apart motors and whatnot. I think the larger size motors, yeah, of course they have to.
They're good at contract.
If there's no competition.
There's never been any competition. Okay. And that one is then coming up for renewal, or will end, and we need to decide what to do in 2025, and I'm sorry, 24.
Yep, end of 2024. So in July, we'll be presenting to you the options. And to your point is the options, even if there was an option to renewal, obviously just renewal, but there's renegotiate. So that's where we're also doing research on how other with other providers or go out to bid. Going out to bid, we will want to be strategic on, you need to know things so that you don't just have a mass flight. We just need to be prepared. So how do we let operators know? Like I've talked to some utilities who've done it right and said they would have done it differently. So we're preparing ourselves for all of that as we present the options.
Well, there are options out there. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, next item is the recycled water opportunities in the city of Carson. Mr. General Manager.
I'll bounce it right back to staff and I'll have Orlando provide the update here, so please.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the committee. Today I will be talking about recent discussions regarding potential recycled water opportunities in the city of Carson. You can find a copy of the staff report on page 3 of the agenda packet. First, I'd like to start off with some pieces of information. Fiscal year 21-22, recycled water, specifically used for irrigation totaled around 4,660 acre feet. And at the same fiscal year, irrigation demands in the city of Carson equaled about 548 acre feet. So last year in 2022, staff was approached by the city of Carson, NWD, and LA sanitation districts to evaluate potential connections to recycled water new sites prior to the 2028 Summer Olympics. As a result, the city and staff began early discussions regarding converting an existing irrigation line along Carson Street to recycled water, which you can find on page 6 of the agenda packet, along with potentially connecting 4 new sites to recycled water for irrigation. And that you could find on page 9 of the agenda packet. These 4 new sites, which we are calling the Main Street Pipeline Project, include 2 parks, Veterans Park and Scott Park, and 2 schools, Stephen White Middle School and Carson High School, which represent a total demand of approximately 68 acre feet a year. Last month, on March 2nd, staff met with representatives from the city and Cal Water to discuss the aforementioned pipeline projects, as well as West Basin's current focus on increasing groundwater augmentation and the proposed Mills Park recycled water lateral project, which is shown on page 12 of the agenda packet. And I would like to quickly point out some key highlights from that meeting that we had last month. Staff indicated that West Basin is currently looking at converting the existing recycled water distribution system to a higher quality water source from NWD's Pure Water Southern California project. Although we are not opposed to new pipelines to serve irrigation demands, these types of projects would have to be funded by a third party, let's say the developer, owner, city, or grant, as well as performing some sort of cost benefit analysis. Also, as previously mentioned, the city is interested in converting the Carson Street pipeline to recycled water. The pipeline would connect at the end of our distribution system near the intersection of Main Street and Carson Street. And also there was some interest in extending that pipeline further east to connect to the city's Civic Center on the other side of, I believe, Avalon Boulevard. In regards to the Main Street Pipeline project, staff did share an exhibit showing 2 pipeline alternatives for the city to consider, as well as the cost estimates associated with each alternative. And then also staff, as previously mentioned, shared information regarding the Mills Park recycled water lateral project, including the potential demands of that and the cost. And we did ask if the city and Cal Water would consider committing funds towards that project, and they would consider it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Couldn't hear you.
We did. So for the Mills Park project, we did ask the city and Cal Water representatives at the meeting they would commit to some funds for the project in order for us to initiate it and complete it. So they would take it back for consideration with their staff. And finally, the city indicated that they're interested in continuing the Carson Reclamation Authority development. That's along the I-405 between Del Amo Boulevard and Main Street. If you recall, West Basin Board of Directors in 2019 authorized the general manager at the time to enter into an agreement with the city of Carson, but the city of Carson's city council did not approve the agreement, so it basically just is at a standstill at this point. But the city does indicate that they want to essentially revitalize that project and bring it back. So one clarification I do want to express in the staff report, our intention was to be present at this past Tuesday's City of Carson's council meeting. The City of Carson, we're going to present on the current status of the recycled water industry, as well as the potential recycled water projects I previously mentioned. Unfortunately, at the last minute, the items did not make the agenda, so staff were not present, but their intention is to come back in the May council meeting, and we'll ask staff if they could be present at that presentation that they will make to their city council. So I just would like to point out that these are ongoing discussions, so as we, have more information, we will definitely share that with the committee as the information comes to pass. So forth. So this concludes the information item, and I would be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you.
I'd like to add, if I may. I think this is a really great update, a great opportunity for us to continue to provide the durable resource that is recycled water, in particular to the city of Carson, where we sit right now. And we're fortunate in that we have grant funding for one of the projects that Orlando talked about, which is the Mills Park project from the Army Corps appropriation. And our staff was successful in applying for the state IRWIMP grant for that one as well. But we do have kind of a small funding gap that still remains. And so that's where Orlando highlighted that at the staff level, the conversation was for the Cal Water Service and City of Carson to consider helping us close that funding gap so it doesn't fall on the district to entirely fund that funding gap. We're looking at a similar situation with our other Army Corps funded project, which is the North Gardena Lateral. And so we're going to be talking with the City of Gardena about that one in a similar manner, as well as in this case, Golden State Water, to see if they would be interested in supporting that project and helping us close the funding gap on that as well. But with all of that, I'd like to just say that we recognize that the more cost-effective approach towards utilizing all of our water recycling is by using the groundwater system to put that recycled water into our drinking water aquifers, and then ultimately getting that water back through our blue pipes, because that certainly will give us more customer base to use all of that water, and therefore it'll be more economically viable to do so in terms of dollar per acre foot. And then it also helps us further reduce our use of the Colorado River water. So a lot more opportunity to be economically viable if we use our drinking water system rather than continuing to put in purple pipes. And so with that, I just want to make the comment that I would encourage the board to consider development of a policy regarding the future direction of irrigation pipes, perhaps looking at curtailing the more expensive type projects, allowing for case-by-case evaluations where developers are willing to fund, but more focusing our efforts on IPR strategies and DPR strategies rather than continuing with Title 22 type purple pipe projects. So that's just my own comments for the committee's consideration. Of course, as my tenure here is somewhat abbreviated.
If there's no other comments, Director Williams?
How far along are we, and I say we, meaning the region, with the high quality drinking water, I mean the recycled water? Because it seems like purple pipe it's got a very limited future. And we should be moving away from it. So, but we know that it depends a great deal on what's happening with the project at the Joint Pollution Control Plant. I think that's the pure water project. Then the other one down the road, that what City of LA, their sanitation district recycled water project. And what is that one called?
Hyperion 2035.
So how far along are we there? Because we really should be moving away from purple pipe. I mean, it's just no future for it.
And let me just give the quick answer to your question, Director Williams. The target date for the pure water program under the Carson Joint Pollution Control Plant, my understanding is their target date for full-scale delivery is 2032. We actually are looking to have metropolitan staff participate in our next caucus meeting if the board president allows to have a presentation on the status of the pure water program. But my understanding is 2032 is the target for that, so it's a short years away. And then on the Hyperion side, with the Hyperion 2035, as the name implies, 2035 is when we plan to have full advanced treatment, with that facility. And so a little bit longer than pure water, but not too far off.
I attended along with Director Alvarez, the Orange County water recycling plant in their efforts, and they're way out there.
Oh yeah, they've recently upsized their capacity to, what is it, 100 plus?
100% of their wastewater is now treated for direct portable reuse.
So we need to get cracking.
And that's an important milestone. So essentially getting to very minimal discharge to the ocean. So another positive benefit.
Director Deere, any comments?
Yeah.
Director Gray, do you have any comments?
Just that I'm looking forward to really hearing more about the status of, I guess, the presentation that Met's gonna make. Is that what the general manager was talking about?
Staff is reaching out. Yeah, staff is reaching out to Met staff to see if they would be willing to provide a presentation at our next caucus meeting. And of course, we'll talk with you and Director Alvarez about that in our own debriefs, and then ultimately get the board president to, consider that as well.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Okay. With respect to the pure water, 2032 is their full implementation. Did they have an early implementation for a smaller amount that they were looking at?
Yes, 2028 is their early delivery schedule.
And they're primarily looking at us as the delivery point for that early completion date for the early portion.
That was some of their early presentations, was to deliver a certain amount that would come into the West Basin system to meet a variety of agency needs, Torrance, WRD, ourselves, and maybe some side stream deliveries elsewhere to LA and possibly Long Beach, 30 MGD being the totality of all of that. There is some discussion about the feasibility of that, and so that may be another part of what we need to look at.
No, it's a big topic that the Pure Water Subcommittee is met.
Which you remember, right?
But it's
I can't
an
hear
item
you.
that's coming up it's for discussion, and we will be receiving another presentation.
Mr.
on
Chair.
Those items.
Barely hear you.
I'm sorry about that. We were just saying that it's an active item at Met, and that and there will be a presentation at Met to the Pure Water Committee on some of that coming up. It's been a continuing item of discussion, but there's an upcoming presentation.
Thank you.
To the immediate projects then at Carson is because Greg, or Mr. General Manager, you referred to a project that's the one that's funded through the Corps of Engineers and the grant funding. So what's the deadlines on that one? Is that something that's still being kind of planned, and we're looking for additional money? Or is that one that is moving either way?
Please.
Yeah,
With y'all.
both the Mills Park and the North Gardena project has funding, outside funding sources, but we don't have those agreements in place. Okay, and so our expectation is to have those agreements probably October, November of this year, and then we'll be taking an assessment to determine, during this planning stage, to determine what the gap funding is and what resources we may have available to fill that gap from participation of other organizations or other possible funding opportunities.
So when you're saying the agreements, these are the agreements with whom?
This is both with the Army Corps, and I believe we also have dollars being delivered from Prop 1.
Okay, so they're the funding portion. Do we have a separate agreement with the city of Carson and or the city of Gardena, since they're two separate projects and their respective water purveyors? Or we do not?
At this particular time, we do not. We are looking at possible agreements with those third parties during this planning stage as we get closer and closer to October-ish.
Yeah, we're just beginning the discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're asking if they would consider that. The first discussions, as Orlando indicated, have been at the staff level. Cal Water indicated that they would be happy to have receive they call it an advice letter from us to formally ask in writing. And so we're working on that letter right now. And the council presentation that was postponed, the agenda item was postponed, was for the purpose of the city council to kind of consider that idea as well. I don't think we've reached out to Gardena as yet and Golden State as yet, but that's our intention.
Well, thank you. There's no other questions or?
Well, just a comment, the Olympics, they're coming up soon, right? What year is that?
2028.
Is it?
2028.
We should be marketing this project to how important it is for us to get this thing funded so that we will be ready to provide some benefit to the Olympics.
Right, and the city of Carson certainly wants to make sure that their streets are restored and no impedance during that, Olympic celebration.
So they should be working on helping us getting funding for that.
So are the Olympics gonna be in Gardena and Carson?
They're gonna be everywhere.
In Carson. Take it easy.
That's the,
Yeah, there's at least one,
yeah,
there's at least one event planned for the Dignity Health Center.
Yeah, see, so they'll have to drive on our streets.
how
So
about Gardena? Anything there?
No,
I think so.
they didn't have it last time. They were.
We'll actually,
Olympics, the
we'll
Olympics will be
actually
touching
provide you
everything.
with some information on
The
that.
horse runners will be running.
Hey, we don't want any potholes out there, right?
A lot of catch up on that.
Carson is the pothole capital of Southern California. Are we down on Big Boulevard in Carson?
That's not Augusta County,
Oh, under it is.
man. Hey, there you go.
Right, you can see that everybody's, like this.
City of LA.
I understand we have a past governor who's willing to come out and fill the potholes.
You saw that, huh?
Yes. And then somebody told him it was a trench. And he said, well, still they get back though.
And I also want to just acknowledge the Carson Street project that Orlando talked about is a pipe that's already in the ground. And the city would like to energize that pipe from being potable supply to recycled with a possible extension. I really appreciate the staff encouragement that those need to be independently funded so that the district isn't bearing the cost of any extension of that. But to energize the existing alignment should be, pretty easy for us to do. And so that's a great opportunity as well to continue to utilize the Title 22 water while it's still around.
Okay, I don't have any other
That's it.
questions.
Thank you.
Moving on, the next item is the recycled water fill station update. Mr. General Manager.
Okay, and I will hand it over to Camille to provide us with that staff report. So please, Camille.
Greg. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the committee. Today I will be presenting on the station projects, and I wanted to provide a little bit more background on what we've been doing, what we've accomplished, and what we're currently working on, as well as the look ahead schedule. So if you come with me to packet page 93, I'll begin my presentation. So far, just to remind you, this fill station does have two components, and that's the permitting component, which is mostly composed of submitting a supplemental engineering report in order to get the regulatory approval to operate the fill station. And the second component is the feasibility analysis and design. So far this past month and a half, we've worked with our consultants, Woodard and Curran, to have a monthly progress meeting, and they are currently working on providing the final supplemental engineering report. And in order for them to do so, we've also been drafting the customer training materials. And for the feasibility analysis and design components, we did receive the final technical memorandum 1 from our consultant Tetra Tech in early March. And then as a staff and as a team, we were able to get together and decide upon the ECL fill station site right after. And then we also had a progress meeting with the same consultants. And so they are currently working on the 100% design drawings, and we just received the 70% design drawings last week. And internally, we are also working on the analysis of the potential remote fill station site. And so on packet page 4094, I could go a little bit more detail about why we chose the site that we did at ECL. So based on the technical memorandum 1 recommendation provided by Tetra Tech, we wanted to go with location 3, which is located in the east parking lot of the visitor center, shown on the picture in your left. And so with this location, we are deciding to connect to the existing irrigation system via a 1-inch quick coupler valve. And the main reason for this is based on the board's urgent request to urgently implement this project. We're going with this specific site. It is the lowest cost, and that's because the least amount of equipment is needed. And it also minimizes the schedule as well, since not that much construction is needed to do so. Another reason for selecting the site is because it is very close to the restrooms. So that allows an ease of access to the restrooms for the customers, as well as the staff that will be operating the fill station. And again, as it requires a very simple design, it minimizes the equipment we need. And so we are going to be utilizing existing vendors to purchase that equipment, as well as this site allows for more space, so that in the future, if we want to add another hose dispenser, or if we want to even expand it into a new recycling, a higher flow rate there's opportunity to do that as well. So the overall cost to implement the fill station at this site is about $4,500, and that includes the quick coupler, a sub meter, as well as a hose cabinet and some contingency. So on packet page 95, you will see the 70% design drawings. These just came in, so I just wanted to quickly show you that Tetra Tech has been working on them and was able to submit it, so we are in the process of reviewing. But you can see on the left where that quick coupler will be located. It is a 1-inch, and it provides about 15 gallons per minute flow rate. You'll also see that a new recycled water sign will have to go into it adjacent, and that's just a regulatory requirement. And we also will use the adjacent customer parking spots for the fill station customers. On the right, you kind of see details that were provided. That is mostly regarding the warnings for recycled water signs, as well as how the existing coupler currently looks. So packet page 96, you will see the customer training materials. So as I mentioned, these are required, and we need to be able to have each customer either read, sign, or just acknowledge that they have read through all of these different documents. And so I wanted to highlight the documents that we've been working on as the user agreement application. And that basically is a document that has the customer acknowledge and make aware of the risks they are doing when they take this fill station water. And that is the document on the right. And then what to know about recycled water fact sheet also provides further information about the fill station program, who's eligible, the procedures needed to use the fill station, and the understanding that water is very heavy. So they want to make sure that they're acknowledging the vehicle they're bringing in is going to have a lot of weight in the car. Participant training is also another thing to just provide further safety guidance on what is recycled water and how to properly and safely handle it, and where it can be used. And then lastly, the recycled water identification stickers need to go on all the recycled water containers that are carrying the recycled water. And so those are shown up there on the screen. And so that would have to be applied so that those containers future. And so on the next page, you will see the other component of this project is potentially looking at another remote site to put the fill station at somewhere within our customer service area. And in order for us to determine where is the most feasible site to do that, we have prepared some sort of analysis that looks at potential sites located in the cities of Carson, Gardena, Inglewood, Lawndale, Torrance, and Palos Verdes Estates. So far we've out 25 sites. And for each of these sites, we come up with criteria to analyze the potential for its feasibility to host a site. So you'll see the different criteria that listed up there identifies the location. So that's whether or not it's in a district service area, if it's a West Basin facility, and also who is the water purveyor, because that is important when we want to. The other criteria is site accessibility. So we're looking at how close to our existing distribution system it's located at. So I was able to work with our GIS staff to map out our entire existing distribution system shown in the purple line in the image, and also create a buffer zone about 300 feet to know how far out we could potentially connect to. We also want to look at whether or not that site is fenced or open, and then if there's room for parking and queuing. So if there are customers who are interested and there is a lot at one time, we want to make sure they're safe to queue. And then we also want to see restroom accessibility if there's any available for the public to use. Another criteria we looked at was stakeholder acceptance. We wanted to look at whether or not the surrounding neighborhood is a residential or commercial or industrial environment. And we also wanted to understand the partnerships that we would have to go through in order to build a new fuel station site. And we also wanted to briefly look at the permitting that would be required to do so. Another aspect is safety. So again, it goes in hand with whether or not the facility is a working environment and exposes the public to such a thing. And we also want to look at the traffic hazard of it. And we looked at CEQA as well. So the type of CEQA document that might be needed would obviously increase cost. And then we wanted to also understand the audience in terms of who would use this fill station. So we wanted to understand if it would be accessible for residential or commercial residents. And lastly, we kind of did a rough estimated cost and kind of understand how much we're going to be dealing with. And so we made some broad assumptions to understand how much it would cost to build a new service lateral to extend to our distribution system, as well as a new 2-inch meter. And then we also looked at a rough cost for a public or private agreement, depending on the site. To help you better understand this, this is a map of the city of Carson, and we kind of highlighted about 3 potential sites there. But on the next packet, page 98, I can walk you through a quick example of one of the sites that we've looked at. And that is in the city of Torrance, and that's our Torrance Booster Pump Station site. And this is located adjacent to West High School. And so this is located in District 3. It is a West Basin facility, as we have an easement right now for the Torrance Booster Pump Station to operate. And Cal Water Dominguez is the current water purveyor. The accessibility of the site is pretty accessible. It has a very large parking lot. However, that is used by the school during school hours. So that would have to be coordinated with the school in order to use that fill station. There is a side street access, so any kind of queues would not go into a main arterial. And there is no restroom access unless the school is willing to provide that access to it. And then it is, again, within 300 feet of the existing distribution system, so it would not require a lot of pipeline to be built. And the water quality, from what we can tell, is very fair just because it's in the southern line of its distribution system, and it's very close to the treatment facility. Other thing we looked at was obviously the stakeholder acceptance, and that would require a partnership with Torrance Unified School District, and obviously all the regulatory approval that might be needed in order to implement. The safety is the fact that it's next to our current active pump station is the main safety issue. And then for CEQA, if we are able to obtain a partnership with the school district, we could potentially go out for a CEQA. And then lastly, the audience is the residential or commercial fill station. Because of the size and the accessibility of this location, we think it could be for residential fill station or commercial fill station. That is just depending on how. Lastly, we estimated costs, knowing that a new meter would have to be implemented about this lateral would have to be implemented, as well as the school at this specific site. And on the next slide, you will see that we are looking forward to submitting our supplemental ER next month. And we are also working with Tetra Tech to develop 100% design drawings. And per Division of Drinking Water's recommendation, they told us to notify our customer retailers of this upcoming fill station so that they're aware that we're opening up to all of our customers, which will enhance their. And then lastly, we are continuing to seek partnership opportunities for the remote fill station sites. And in June, we are hoping to go out for construction solicitation. The caveat for that, on the simple design that we currently have, we may not need to go out for bid because we can use our existing vendors to purchase all that equipment and essentially assemble the equipment. And then lastly, in July, we're depending on when we get the regulatory approval, we're hoping it's 2 to 3 months. We'll get approval from the Water Resources Control Board, Division of Drinking Water, the LA Regional Water Quality Control Board, and lastly, we will work with the Department of Public Health to get that. And so in July, we're hoping to construct as well as operate. And with that, that concludes my presentation on this update. If you have any questions, I'm happy to.
Well, thank you very much.
If I may add.
Yes,
I thank you, Camille, for doing such a great job with this presentation. And I think Camille did a great job walking through one of the sites that's being evaluated, other than ECL. But I think there's a range of sites that we're looking at, not just that one, because we want to make sure that all the eligibility, the evaluation criteria looked at in comparison and make sure that we're selecting the best of the sites. It just so happens the one that Camille picked was one of the 3 locations that the committee had asked us to look into. And so maybe perhaps that's why you picked that one to provide more elaboration on.
To clarify that, we did look at 3 sites, and that includes Lago Seco Park, Torrance Refinery was one of the sites, as well as JMM Carson plant, were the 3 sites that were indicated by the board last fall. And then Torrance Crucifer was an additional one because it is a west-facing facility that we wanted to look at.
Oh, that is not the Lego Seco Park.
That is no.
Oh, I thought that was the one. Okay. Well, we're looking at a range of sites. Okay.
We have within cities, buildings, parks, and schools mostly. Basically collaborate the best way to implement this.
And so is it safe to say that we'll come back to the committee with a set of recommendations once that evaluation of all the sites have been completed? Okay.
Dr. Williams.
Nothing's ever easy.
No, it's not.
We thought we would have been done a long time ago with this. I have nothing more to say, but if you're doing the right thing, that's because we don't want to pay for it for other reasons down the road. Thank you. That's all I have.
Director Deere. Director Gray, do you have any comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
As Director Williams said, there's supposed to be something that we thought was going to be relatively simple and would have been in place already, but we're moving along. Thank you for all the hard work. On the alternatives, I did remember that we talked about, well, we ought to look at some other alternatives. The original idea was let's just get something done over at C Little where it would be relatively simple. And apparently it is, because we showed a budget of $4,500 to do that. I'm sure that the Tetra Tech drawings probably cost more than $45.
Right.
But it's okay. We like to pay engineers.
Never mind.
On the other alternatives, I saw some of the costs there and they're pretty dramatic in terms of order of magnitudes over that $4,500. I think that when we talked about other potential alternative sites, it would be along the lines of something that would be convenient and it would be relatively cheap. And $30,000 for a new meter plus will run you over 100,000 really fast. I don't think that that was the intent. So we ought to focus more on where there's existing lines that can just be tapped in, put in a quick coupling, kind of like we're doing at the Ed.C. Little. And if there's not a lot of those opportunities, then we need to recognize that. One of the ones that seemed like it would be logical, because it's going in now, was the new pump station or the PV lateral. To just do a small 2-inch takeoff there, which doesn't seem like that would be a very expensive proposition, in that project. But some of the ones that you're looking at, I think are very expensive, and we ought to just focus on more efficient installations, if I can put it that way.
Would you like to provide guidance that would suggest
Um,
keeping it at no more than a certain dollar magnitude?
I like to keep them all at the cost of the Ed.C. Little one.
But I mean, that would be a pretty low bar if we want to apply that, but if that's what the committee would like us to do.
I personally didn't think that we would spend more than $10,000 on any one of these installations, because we'd be looking at just putting some quick couplings where there's an existing line, and that it would be under that threshold. Not expanding this. And the other thing is, let's be honest, this is an opportunity for the community to use it. A lot of the users will probably be more of the commercial landscape companies that service industrial commercial facilities, as well as the larger residential complexes and homeowner associations. There will be some private parties that will also come. They will more than likely come on the weekends to use it. But the bigger users are gonna be the commercial landscaping company. So I don't think that we have that big a population of users, so the investment in it ought to be measured. We ought to be really thinking about that, and maybe we look at how much usage we get at the first facility we would install at the Ed.C. Little, which is pretty straightforward installation. And if there's a tremendous demand, then obviously we can revisit that, but otherwise I think we ought to be very measured in looking at how much money we're gonna spend providing these facilities.
That makes sense. We could see how ECL performs. And if you get an overwhelming response, then maybe the board would like to make it more convenient depending on the geographic reach.
See where the demand is coming from. Is it coming from the South Bay? Is it coming from the easterly part of the district? Is it coming from the north part of the district? And then we can be more focused.
Yep. Chris, thank you for all of that feedback.
All right, well, thank you very much. Moving on, then our next report is the monthly operations report.
Okay, and we'll go back to Uzi and for that report. So Uzi, please.
Highlights on here, we changed the format a little of the memo, so I welcome everybody who's gonna look. Like some of the operational summary from this last month. Berry production was kept down. We have ramped it up, but there was between 4 to 5 MGD due to some of the input water quality issues we had and membrane replacement. I'm sorry, page 100 is a large part of the issue. So from the beginning, page 100 is where I'm starting on the summary, packet page 1. So with these highlighted bullets, we did just get a call, and I recognize this as a reflection back. We got a call yesterday, which we appreciate that there's communication from Hyperion. They lost their oxygen system. They did prepare us that we would see an upset. Now we're prepared a little more. So we do have thresholds of when we start bringing down certain operations to protect the equipment, how we operate, notify the county. So far, we're doing okay. It's hovering like 20 NTU. We talked to them as well today, but I bring that up because, you know, we now have a protocol. We have a system we go through. But as this occurs, as they adjust their system and make their repairs, just like anywhere, something else seems to impact them, which then impacts. So barrier is one of the first things we take down in order to save some of that equipment and those membranes. Because membranes are really what now is sort of our hanging chad of being able to produce more water. Some of the other highlights include we did an injection, temporary injection of chlorine for Portia. Portia does a unique thing of recirculating our recycled water over there. It was a really unique, kind of like the spill station, the partnership with all the regulators was a little bit of a slightly different use. But so we also do interact with them more and interface with them more. The public does see that water more versus a refinery behind protected. So we were down there last Monday.
If I can interrupt you, Uzi, on that, I'm not familiar with a Porsche. So what's the deal there? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So recycled water uses, the Title 22 permit are broad, but narrow at the same time. So whenever we want to do an alternative use, if it's not listed in our permit, you have to do these supplementals. And then even those uses have to have kind of a reg or law somewhere. So what Porsche does is they use recycled water to spray on their tracks. So if anyone has done that, of course, I have not, but I've gone there to look, maybe an employee staff event. They wet their track down so that people can practice skidding out and being hit by water. They use recycled water. That was actually what was required of them in order to run that facility, limited water use. Using that recycled water is then flows into a tank. It's recirculated. They use makeup water. They have a filter there and they use it again. So there's makeup water, but it's all recycled water. And let's say it's twice recycled. So it's actually kind of an innovative approach, but that wasn't technically something that was already on the books for our local regulators. So it required, these are the kind of things that get held up. A lot of work and collaboration to get it permitted. And sometimes they have to write new standards around it. Which included when they're taking people for drives, they can't have their windows down because the recycled water isn't allowed to get them. But it also creates unique challenges, as you can imagine. When we have upsets, our customers are understanding our water quality isn't great, but it's workable. But now you concentrate it up in these systems, it can create unique issues. So whenever we have an upset, sometimes we're required, and some of the things we can do on our end is to add some extra chlorine. We do spot chlorination because we don't have a lot of extra disinfection in the steam pump stations. That's something advantage of the Pure Water Project. We want to look at those kind of things where you can put in these things to prevent that. And so that's how that system works over there and why sometimes it has higher profile, a different kind of use, and sometimes requires a little special addition to make sure they're getting some really ideal water quality.
So, very interesting. So they do flood the track, so you can, part of it is the whole training on how to drive fast, etc. And they use recycled water. And that condition was put on them by the city of Carson when they were permitted?
No, the county, so that's the county. And it was a little bit of a push between the state and the county. Both of them were like, well, you decide, some of the dynamics. But the county ultimately was the one who put the conditions stating what was required because they had to try to fit it within the boxes they have of the type of use.
Oh, it's an excellent condition. It's just why waste portable water when you're just applying it on the track and it's not a consumptive use. So I appreciate the recycling component.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned that because of the regulations, the public can't be exposed to it. So if you're on that track, and you're being trained to drive at high speeds, etc. I'm paying $1,200 a day, by the way.
That's for the slant nose, but yeah, go ahead.
But they do provide the car for that amount of money. So you can't do a convertible. It has to be.
Nope, you cannot. The windows have to be closed. Yeah.
Really?
That was one of the conditions. And it's interesting when my brain for things, I'm always thinking of opportunities and customer service. And if there's a time when we provide, let's say, a good quality recycled water and allow people to do what they would like, so to say, with it on their side, I see a big opportunity. Water reuse, for example, deals kind of more on the let's get IPR, but there's a lot of potential for use at some of these alternative sites. But it's challenging, as you can see with this simple fill station. So I think there's some opportunities later. West Basin was a leader with water reuse and kind of a localized approach so that we could sort of turnkey some of these alternative uses, because this was a perfect example. But I think this was a major corporation that had more resources to put into making that work. And it works for their public relations and image as well and brand. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to help people have more on-site use of recycled water in the future. And I say that as a state and a district. So.
I think it's an excellent example, and it's one that, that's why I asked the question. I said, I didn't know we were doing anything in Portia. That we should maybe promote more, because there should be more of these types of opportunities out there that we're pushing to take advantage of and reduce the use, one, of potable water, which is really important water here, and two, just a better use of recycled water. Very, very innovative. So just, we ought to be pushing this and telling the cities that as conditions of development, they ought to look at more opportunities where the source of the water is not necessarily need to be a portable water source, that they ought to require it. And some developers will not, the majority of developers will always object, well, that's gonna be an additional cost, but at the end of the day, they'll just, if it's a condition of development, they'll do it.
Absolutely. We see that with some of the big stadiums and all that now. They're investing millions to have recycled water, just to have a resource to be able to water. So, yeah, it's very
Their expense, not ours.
correct.
Okay, keep going. Sorry for that
Oh,
interruption.
no, it's a great discussion. Thank you. So then also we did some other maintenance flushing because that the higher iron water and some of that, we also had to do a flushing event with the El Segundo Fire Department. Because they are one of the few people that uses dual plumb. So there is a public that goes into their facility, but nevertheless, they don't want to see that colored water in their restrooms and apparatus. So we worked with them on that. And also we're working still on the CUPA violation with the El Segundo Fire. We received our copy and are waiting for that back, working with Veolia to get that consent order, to get the fines paid for. And the compliance team has worked to make sure that we've implemented all the necessary changes. Finally, one of the bullets on here, the Veolia per contract, a deliverable, is required to present an annual report. And they were put on the agenda, and the contract actually states that their president or vice president comes out. At the request of the board, or a board member, we requested that they come in May. And so I just wanted to bring up that they can come in May. The president or CEO, she cannot make it. So it'll be Larry Cook, unless we want to bump it even further to June, then she could come June 24th. Otherwise, in May, it would be Larry Cook, who is the Western Regional President or Western Regional.
But he's a decision maker for the outfit though, right?
Yeah, he is not the CEO of Veolia USA, but of the Western region. So the Mississippi basically.
If we're making some big change, that'll be fine.
Okay.
Fine with us.
If not, Chris, it can come out in June, so.
Yeah, it's just west of Mississippi.
And that request is
That must be a dry job. All right, so, and then finally, on here, we have the presentation and the numbers. We're still struggling with keeping up some potable water uses, as mentioned. Some of our membranes are worn out. We are doing some targeted approaches to looking at everything from cleaning tanks, checking analyzers, dosing pumps, more jar testing. So we're making a lot of these efforts. But if you'd like, we can continue on to this presentation if you wasn't sure if you wanted to see that or not. And if so, Suzanne is welcome to.
Sure.
Yep. Okay, just one of the first.
And if I may, we also have the report that was requested for potable cell deliveries and recycled water deliveries.
Is also attached.
It's also attached. Okay, thank you.
Follows what is in.
Yep, thank you.
So, thank you, Lucy, for the summary. This is continuation on a regular report on the water quality. As you can see that first 3 months of this year, we ran into some challenges with water quality, as was mentioned. Hyperion was doing a bunch of rehab work with their primary clarifiers. Even though they initially didn't think that it would hit water quality to us, but it did. It impacted our operations. We had to reduce barrier, and also as a result of the higher air usage, it impacted our lake facility as well. Go on to the next page. That shows the results that came through our facility. The last the recent water quality upsets. So basically, it produces like more than double the amount of solids that came through. So that impacts our solids dewatering facilities and also increase the amount of recirculation back to our. This is overall like our recycled water production through the month of March. And basically, the next page is the chart that summarizes the individual the major customers' production. On page 106, we're about 10% below budget. The highlights, main contributor is barrier, as we mentioned. We really need to replace the baseline membranes, which I'll be bringing to the board shortly. Torrance Refinery is the other performer that maybe because we had to supplement a lot of potable water through a couple of times through March, and we at that facility I had a board member to procure membranes because without placement of the membranes, we may be at risk of shutting down altogether of producing recycled water. And here is just more detailed comparison of recycled water sales in March and then to water sales to last fiscal year. On to the monthly maintenance activity. As Lucy mentioned, we're doing a lot of trying to clean up and catch up work at the plant after the whole year and a half of challenge due to the 2021 upset. So we're cleaning up the pre-treatment, repairing and replacing motor, and that is at ECL. At JMM, one of our satellites is the feed pumps, and all the pumps are being impacted. So you see the maintenance staff with doing the reassembling our pumps for that facility plant, the maintenance shop, and also we're constantly doing solid testing and membrane testing at satellites and troubleshooting other aging infrastructure as needed. Next page. 9. Just want to highlight here, we received notice of compliance.
any questions, Susie will be able to reply. 10, that's just water customer service. For purveyor program, we continue with the sampling effort. And then on page 111's, page 112 is out distribution. Frank is not here. He's actually, they're out doing a cross connection test right now, but if anyone has any questions on that, we're happy to answer them. For the 1,000 marks, lots of activity going on. With that, is our normal reporting. And if you want to go to the portable. That is all sales. And the potable water supplement usages begins on page 20. So let know if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Greg, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Mr. Deere?
Nope. Thank you.
Director Gray, do you have any questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much. I appreciate the production and sales data very much. And maybe next month, we can go into that a little bit more in terms of just kind of comparison of where we're at and we're looking at some of the recycled water sites and how much recycled water is being used versus how much potable water is being used. Because that seems to shift quite a bit from month to month.
Just looking ahead from May, I believe the UNO is on May 10th. On finance, normally we'll get that, all the sales report till May 11 or 12, so we might not have updated information. But I'll be glad to go over the same numbers here.
Well, maybe we can move the committee meeting so that it would be more appropriate for that information. But we'll decide on that. But thank you very much. Appreciate all the data that you put together. I know it was done at the last. Okay, so moving on, monthly engineering report, Mr. General Manager.
Wendell Johnson, our engineering manager, will provide that report. So Wendell.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. If you could please turn to page 130 in your packet. I'm going to provide you with some highlights of activities from the engineering department. I'm going to drop off script for a second and talk about the solids handling project. We started this project about 2 weeks ago, and this project involves replacement of the filtered cloths. The committee approved this project probably about 2 or 3 months ago, and we've already starting to realize quite an improvement in the density of the solids that are coming off of the press. We've gone from 15% to around 30% already, so we're already receiving a little bit of the savings. And the project itself is on schedule. We're scheduled to complete 1 press by the end of this week, and we hope to get started on the second press on Monday. So we took us about 14 days to actually, 10 days of actual work days to get through one press. And our expectation is to be done with this project in about 2 weeks. But always there's a glitch, okay? And so we haven't received the delivery yet of our second batch of cloths, but we're expecting them to be delivered on Friday. So hopefully those will come in on Friday and we'll be able to continue through with that project. So I'm excited about the denser solid cakes that are coming off of that press, because it's substantially reducing our cost of haulage as well as improving the recirculation of solids throughout the system. So I think those were some dollars that were well spent in that particular area.
Validating the business case.
Yeah, I've never been so excited about solids. We've been working on this project for a while. So staff, we've already provided a couple updates here. We provided you with a detailed update of the water fill station, the recycled water fill station, as well as some of the opportunities that we had in Carson for expansion of the purple pipe system through the city. Additionally, we spoke at a few E&Os a couple months ago about coming back to the board or to the committee to make adjustments to our material testing contract. However, we've done an audit of the billing, and we've taken a look at the projections, and we don't feel that we need to come back to the committee at this particular time. We actually feel that we may have enough funds in that contract to make it through the end of the job. It's exciting out there. I'd like for the board, if you have the time, the end of board members to get out to the site and take a look at things before things start to really button up. Our expectation is that we're going to be delivering some water coming in July. We will have our startup, so that's exciting too. Go ahead.
Would the committee like to visit the site at this point in time? If so, maybe the acting board secretary can work with you to coordinate an agreeable time, day and time.
Open.
I'd like to see the site, but I can't, right now.
No, not at this moment, but I mean, our acting board secretary could reach out to you and coordinate a day that works for, all the.
Or individually, maybe, depending on our respective schedules.
Yeah, I think one of
We
them.
can do that.
Yeah, one of the motivations also was to maybe, if there's anything that you'd like the contractor to address, we could probably have him, take care of what you see as well.
Buy lunch and I'll be there.
Okay. All
So
right.
will Director Deer.
It's too inconvenient to walk around. Walker, so forget it.
Oh, so you would not like to be included in that? Okay, all right. Okay, well, Hazel, if you don't mind.
And moving on, we've nearly completed the Title 22 converted filters booster pump station. As reported before, we did have a glitch in bringing the station online or connecting the boosted pump system to the converted filters, and we weren't able to actually operate some key valves, but we were able to go in there with a change order for a line stop that's inserted a line stop, and we were able to isolate the water that was flowing through there. So we were able to perform the tie-in on that particular system. This project is still within budget, within the 10% contingency. Our timeline has been extended out a little bit, and we really expect the project to wrap up in late May or early June. We've got a few tasks to do, as well as we'd like to be able to commission them against the filters that are out there. And Veolia they're using their troops to actually recondition some of the filters that have been offline for an extended amount of time. And so we'd like to be able to run the system once the pump station is complete. And we also provided you with a detailed oral presentation about the risk and resilient assessment project. So I won't go over that at this particular time. So if there's anything, if we go to the presentation on page 132, 133 rather, again, this is a reconciliation of the monies that have been spent on the CIP program year to date from July of last year to last month, the end of February. Have any questions? I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Wendell. Director Williams, any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you. No, thank you.
Director Deere? Director Gray? Okay, well, I don't have any questions. Thank you very much. With that, done very timely meeting today. So thank you very much. All of you, very concise and well-presented reports. There's no closed session. Director comments for future agenda items. Director Williams.
I have none. Thank you.
Director Deere. Director Gray. And I have none. So this meeting, Mr. General Manager, you raised your hand.
And only because this probably will be my final ENO committee. And given that, I'm a civil engineer, here with the district, I just want to thank staff for all of their, expertise and professionalism that they've displayed in all the committee meetings that I've been with them. And very dedicated, trying their level best to make some special things happen for this district. And I've just, I want to extend my, debt of gratitude for all that I've been a part of with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're adjourned.